timeline of the Megillah. It's like, wait. They're still at this party for one whole week. And so I just think it's a lot of fun. I feel like it's kind of quarantine-esque, the Megillah, because, now if you're going to have a party with someone, they might as well stay for 5 days. I mean, they might as well quarantine in your house. So anyway, I'm excited to be here with you guys during Adar. It's not davening, but we did hear a drash, it's Dvar Torah, whatever. We're all very Jewishly connected in this comedy show, and I am here for it. And of course, we talked about Sam and Franny's finances, which is also very Jewish, and errands. I feel like that's the thing. You guys, some of you maybe have heard me talk about errands. I really miss returning an item live. That's the thing that I really want to do when I get out of COVID, when we're done with all this. It's just like go into a store with a thing that I already bought at the store, but I kind of wanted to go back to the store because I think, I was at a stationery store recently, and I was like, I don't think that they sell what I am in this stationery store for the purpose of buying, which is moving into the stationery store. I'll just buy $100 graph paper notebook that I'll never use, but really I just want to be here. So if I buy it, then I can return it, and then I can, approximate moving into the store. But anyway, so we're here on Zoom, okay, here's a question. Do we know for sure that it's not pronounced Zoom? Just a question, okay? Because here's my theory, right? First of all, I don't mind Zoom. I don't. People are zoomed out, but I don't mind Zoom because the thing is, it's like as a comedian, after the pandemic, where am I going to know the first and last names of my audience members and what their face looks like when they're sending an email? These are the details that I'm going to need, and you don't get them in real life. So I think, but on the pronunciation of Zoom, it's not just that, it's Orthodox people and they can't say Zoom because it takes too long. It's Zoom, it's shul. But instead, we have not been seeing each other in person. We're isolated. I, for one, have not seen a commercial for this website that we're on. And I just wonder if it's like the book, that you read over summer vacation, and while you're reading the book, you're thinking the words are pronounced one way, and then it's not until the first day of school that you realize you've been saying it wrong the whole summer. It's just oh, what? I definitely knew her name wasn't Hermione, right? She didn't fix a cupboard. They served hors d'oeuvres at the Christmas party. What? She crotcheted a blanket. That's what it said. I think we're going to get out of quarantine after the pandemic. We're going to find out that it's Zoom. Just a theory, and you heard it here first. And by the way, during this pandemic, I don't know about you guys, but I cannot sleep. I can't do it. And I have tried everything. Okay, Michelle Bayuk. Is that how you say it? Bayek? Right. Well, either way, she pronounces it both ways, I'm guessing. But you can't sleep, okay? And I have tried everything during this pandemic to sleep, okay? I've tried Benadryl. I've tried melatonin. Every night, I go to bed dreaming of literal anesthesia. How many melatonin equal anesthesia? And by the way, I had the pleasure of getting local anesthesia a week ago. So during the pandemic, and I don't mean to brag, but I passed out unconscious. Just local anesthesia. Wasn't supposed to do that, but it did. And honestly, when I came to, I'm looking at the doctor and the nurse on top of me. My first thought was, you had to wake me? This was the best nap I had since March 15, 2020, So anyway, I'm going to get a colonoscopy next week. I know it's good. But I really can't sleep. And I've tried everything. Do you guys ever do meditation apps? I don't miss some. Okay, maybe. Okay, well, Aaron Nierenberg, maybe try it. I don't know. But I like them mostly. I mean, honestly, I think the best meditation for me would just be a mother on customer service, just a recording of that, because that's calming to me. But anyway, they don't make that yet. But they have these meditation apps, and they used to work for me. But now it's I listen to them, and I'm gaslighting. They're gaslighting me, because the meditation will say everything's fine, you can relax, nothing's wrong. And I'm when exactly was this meditation recorded? I need a meditation that's recorded in the future. A good bit in the future. Somebody who's hey, it's me, I'm in 2026, this all works out fine, you can go to sleep. And by the way, it's pronounced Zoom. You were right, and you're the spokesperson for Zoom, as it turns out. So anyway, that's me during the pandemic. But I do, in my bio, I said I love a COVID test. And honestly, I mean, like, COVID is very serious and tragic, and there's not a joke there. But I am going to miss a COVID test. There, I said it, okay? I love a COVID test. And honestly, spit you can have. I love a nosy. That is my favorite kind of COVID test. And the thing is that somebody told me I was going to hate it. And unfortunately, I love nothing more than loving a thing that somebody tells me I'm going to hate. So I get there and I'm already set up to love this, right? And then after, like, people told me, they're like, it's going to go so far up in your nose. It's a little too long. And after the woman was done, I was like, what did you find? Can you do that again? You know? And so I absolutely loved it. And I was thinking about why after. I'm just like, what was that about? And, you know, I came up with a few reasons. I was like, well, maybe it's the first unexpected touch from a stranger in months. Like, that could be it. You know, it could be, I mean, it was basically like an excursion, right? It was like my mani-pedi and massage all rolled into one extra long Q-tip going straight up into my brain. But I digress. But then I was like, you know what, honestly, the thing was, this was the only thing that finally got the far back booger out of my nose. So I'm there at least once a week. I'm a regular. They think I'm a frontline worker. I could not be more non-essential, you know, but I love it. I mean, honestly, I was there recently, and number one, the woman recognized me in the line, which, like, I was more excited about that than graduating from law school. I was very proud. And then she looks at my name and she looks at me, she's like, Elizabeth. And I was like, yeah, because that's my full name. And she's like, you don't go by Elizabeth. Like, she could tell. And I'm like, you're right, I go by Liz, you know? So I'm very proud of that. And I do love a COVID test, truly. I don't know. I mean, I wonder if it's because I'm sober. That's something that, you know, because, like, I have to take my kicks where I can, get them. And, like, first of all, in terms of my telling you about my sobriety, believe me, I don't want to. I really don't. Because the thing is, it's so expected for a sober person to be talking about how they're sober. Sober people love telling people that they're sober. It's kind of like in AA, the slogan is one day at a time. I feel like there must be an addendum. It's like one day at a time, but I get to tell them I'm sober every single one of those days. I'm in, you know? And I think it's like, unfortunately though, I don't want to tell you that I'm sober, but I want to tell you that I'm not telling you that I'm telling you that I'm sober. So unfortunately, I have to tell you that I'm not telling you that I'm telling you I'm sober. So I am sober, but you didn't hear it from me. Anyway, and like, I don't think I was an addict necessarily. I'm just someone who should not be trusted around drugs. That's how I identify. Like, honestly, it's just like, one time, I had an Adderall prescription, which is a very confusing prescription for somebody who's been socialized to love homework, which is really how I identify. I mean, especially in Jewish day school, you have like 2 whole versions of different homework. I mean, it doesn't end. And so when I was on Adderall, I suddenly thought that everything that was fun was boring and everything that was boring was fun. I remember I was on Adderall for the first time. I'm like stalking an ex-boyfriend on Facebook, which I think was very fun. And then all of a sudden I'm like, don't I have a paper to write? And that's how I knew it was a very powerful drug that was working. But one time, and I used to take my prescription as like a light suggestion. I'm like, yeah, but you know, I could do more homework and clean everybody else's room if I just take the whole bottle. And one time I took a lot of Adderall and I bought a website, which is listless.com. Okay, you heard it right. Listless.com, which I don't know if anybody on this call has bought a website that's a single word that's like not your name. They're not cheap, okay? I mean, Sam and Franny would have to raise a lot of money from Minion to get a website like that because it was $8,500 on a credit card. Not smart, not a good investment. And by the way, to this day, I still own listless.com, which I bought on that credit card for a ton of money. And it currently, 9.5 years after I bought it, continues to have no lists and no content at all. So anyway, that's like something that I did on drugs. That's a terrible idea. Like, it's a good thing that I don't do drugs anymore. Like, also, it's like weed was my thing. I liked smoking pot, and it just made me paranoid. And so I stopped doing it. Like, one time I smoked weed and I uploaded a video to YouTube, and the video immediately gets a thumbs down on YouTube, and then there's a knock at the door. I was convinced that the knock at the door was the thumbs down person coming to get me. So it's just a good idea for me to just abstain. But I do love a COVID test, and, thankfully there's a lot of them. But, I mean, yes, I think it's a great thing that there's a vaccine and there's hope, but I'm just here to say I'll miss it. That's it, okay? I did mention that I was prouder to know that the COVID test lady knows me than I was from graduating from law school. I did graduate from law school. That is the typical route to stand-up comedy. I was a law professor, okay? So generally speaking, for those interested in a career in stand-up, the way to get into stand-up comedy is you go to law school for 3 years, then you practice for 2 years, then you teach for 9 years, get tenure, give it all up, and do stand-up comedy. Yelling into your laptop in front of the bathroom with the cat litter. This is living the dream. I mean, at this point, it's like I got a bunch of degrees, and then I did this. So they're just props. They're just props. So anyway, but it's like, having been a lawyer, like, there's some ways in which I still sort of am a lawyer. Like, I talk like this, first of all. Second of all, it's like, I think about, like, I email back faster than the mailer demon. You know what I mean? Like, that's a lawyer relic quality. You know what I mean? And I feel like now it's like I don't want to be a lawyer, really. So I use my law degree. Like, I'll argue that I'm wrong, right? I couldn't agree more. And I put my powers of argumentation into those sorts of arguments. But, my mother's on this call. And when I think I told some of you guys this story, but I'll just say it, quickly, which is just that when I left my job, so I was a law professor for 9 years and then, did stand-up comedy. And so it was like a big shift. And I was nervous about that. And so I called my mom to tell her that I was going to be leaving. And she was not thrilled. She was like, Elizabeth, and my name is Liz. Just ask the COVID lady. But my name is Liz, but it's like my parents paid for every letter, and vowels are expensive. The wheel watchers know. And so she's like, Elizabeth, what are you going to do if you're going to be a stand-up comedian? What are you going to do for money? And I didn't like that. So I just fired right back. I was like, well, mommy, I could be a prostitute, just to be fresh. And she did not like that. She was like, oh, Elizabeth, I'm sure that would work. Which I was like, oh my God, that's like a sick burn, mommy. And then I thought about it. I was just like, my mom doesn't think that I would be a good prostitute. Then I thought about it for like another half second, and I was like, I think she has a point. What kind of prostitute realistically would I be? I feel like if I was a prostitute, I'd just be wearing like this t-shirt, the sports bra underneath, just, hang out on South Orange Avenue. And if someone came by, I'd be like, do you really want to have sex? Can't we just go to your apartment, have an all-night emotionally exhausting conversation? We could just start a podcast. Talk about your errands. We'll balance your checkbook. That's the kind of prostitute that I would be. And she was just like, I don't really think that's going to work. But anyway, so here we are with me in stand-up. And I used to be a lawyer. And it's also funny to me because people, because I was a lawyer, assume certain things about me. Like, my wife and I were thinking of buying a house, and the broker tells my wife, because she knows both of us, she's like, Liz is really going to want to take a look at these documents. And I was like, I know Liz. She definitely does not want anything to do with the documents. And I was on a Zoom, okay? And it was like one of these things where, at the beginning of a Zoom, I mean, we saw it today, right? Where it's kind of like whoever talks, it's always a little funny. And it's a little weird, right? And so it's Sam and Franny talking about the minion finances, and we can laugh about it, but sometimes they don't have as much personality as Sam or Franny. And in this case, it was this guy, Kevin, and he was talking and nobody wanted to listen. They just wanted to like send their emails, whatever. And then to try and sell what he was saying, he's like, well, Liz will be interested in this because she was a lawyer. And I'm like, what is it, Kevin? And then Kevin proceeds to tell, like, he was like talking about how one person I do not know is suing another person I also do not know. Meanwhile, I am tuning out Kevin and thinking, I wonder if I have standing to sue Kevin for this boring non-story, right? Pretty sure that I'm incurring damages as we speak. I mean, really, it's just like so boring. And I left for a reason. When I think about my old job, like honestly, my job as a lawyer was sitting at my desk being CC'd on emails I didn't understand. And I did that very well, right? I mean, I remember, like, I don't, for lawyers on this call, and I don't know what you do, but I think in a shul Zoom or a shul Zoom or a temple Zoom, as it were, there's for sure someone here who's a lawyer. If not, like 50% of you are lawyers. And I just want to say that, like, I don't have disdain for law, for my legal career. I actually great. Lisa's a former lawyer. Oh, I love an ex-lawyer. I mean, if you've ever wondered if being a lawyer is fun or if it's tiring, just talk to any ex-lawyer, because like ex-lawyers just say it all, because they're like, I used to be an attorney. Now I'm a clown who supervises naps. Like, it's not fun and it's very exhausting. But anyway, no, like some people really love it. And I remember, like, I was practicing for a short time, and there was like 1 week that was basically, I was up the whole time, it was like closings. I had no idea what was going on, but I knew that there was a lot of emails that I was getting, and it was like, you know, a lot of pressure. And I walk in one day from basically like going home to take a nap for 15 minutes. And this partner, I get off the elevator, and this partner's like, Liz, are you having fun? And he wasn't asking to be like sarcastic or mean or even annoying. He was asking because it was kind of like he had a crush on our shared job and he just couldn't not talk about it. And so he was just like, oh my God, like, isn't our job so fun? And I remember thinking, I didn't think that fun was even on the table. Like, maybe it's fine, but it's for sure not. Like, who has fun here? And the answer is Stephen. And I knew based on that conversation, I'm like, Stephen really is having fun. And I think I understand what fun is, but I know that we are not having the same time at this job. So I'm going to leave and become a comedian. And now what I find funny is that, like, on a comedy show, or like I also act, and something that people tell you, like before you go on stage or even in Zoom or before an audition as an actor, is just like, you know, there's only one rule here. Just have fun. And they mean it to be like cute, because like, how can it be a rule for you to have fun? And honestly, what I hear, having been a former lawyer, is just like, there is one rule here, and that is to have fun, because it's very hard for me to do. I actually was once in an acting class, and the acting teacher had like a rubric for how I was doing, like how everybody in the performance was doing. And one of the rows in the rubric was, is the performer having fun? And she circled for me, fun needs work. So I get it. I do need to work on it. But you know, it's hard work here, having fun, truly. But anyway, so I used to be a lawyer, and now I'm not. Like, it's like in everyday context, I feel like I want to not fight, like almost like as to prove a point. Like in traffic, that's one that I'm like, it's so expected for you to hate being in traffic. What if you love it? What if you just like decide that you're gonna love it? And so what I love, I really enjoy very few things more than this, is if I'm in traffic and somebody honks at me, and you know what they do when they honk at you? They want to chat, but like without, they want to mime, right? Very dramatically, like, right? And I love nothing more than looking right at them and just being like, so I don't mind waiting. I really don't. And I don't care for this expectation that I'm supposed to be upset because I'm waiting. I happen to like it. If there's traffic, that's a sign from Hashem for me to slow down. That's my drash for today, which I know that's like a little heavy-handed. It's a little bit like have fun, but I do. I say to people in traffic, have fun. And then they curse me out because that is a very annoying thing to be told in the context of traffic, but I do love it. Another thing, so this is like a little bit of a pivot, but it annoys me just as much, and it makes sense in my head to go next to this thing. Okay, so I am a cat lady. I love cats. I am a lesbian. So I feel like the two go together. Like, and it's like, I am a lesbian. I feel like at some point I did get gay enough. I could stop coming out. People were like, we're aware. And I wonder sometimes if I'm a typical lesbian, like if I'm good at being a lesbian. For sure, in some ways, I am terrible at being a lesbian. Like, I discovered the bands, and I don't even know if they're bands, like musicians, Ani DeFranco and the Indigo Girls, because of my straight male friend, okay? That's the kind of lesbian I am. But like in other ways, I am a typical lesbian. Like I have cats. I have 200,000. We all live together in a U-Haul. It's parked right outside my ex-girlfriend's house where she happens to live with my other ex-girlfriend. They're together now. I park behind the Subaru. Unless it's being used, then I'll just park behind the other Subaru. It's no problem. But I don't know if I fit into the stereotypes, but the thing is, okay, so mostly being a lesbian, what's it like? It's a lot of cat hair. That is the truth. You heard it here first. And I love cats. I'm a helicopter cat mom, not afraid to admit it. And now, in quarantine, I go on walks. I mean, maybe a little bit less in the snow, but as I'm walking around, and I live right where you guys live, so I'm walking around like South Orange, Maplewood, whatever, and you see so many lost cat signs, right? Every other block, it's like missing cat, whatever. And I can't help but think, I'm sorry if I'm offending you people, if you let out your cat, okay? If anybody is a cat person, but the thing is, these people who let out the cat, it's like they're so adamant that that's what the cat needs. It's like, he needs to get out. He's a wild animal. I'm like, he's a pillow with a face. Your cat, right? Like, basically, I can't tell the difference between the sheets and your cat. His personality is a marshmallow, truly. And so I don't get it because they're so fixated on just like, he needs to get, I don't know what we're going to do if the cat doesn't get out. I'm like, I don't leave my apartment as often as your cat. Truly. And it's just like whenever I do leave my apartment, or if my wife leaves her apartment, my apartment, if my mother leaves her house, I have find my friends, okay? Because I'm a paranoid Jewish woman. And so I need to know, where's my wife? Where's my mother? You can't do that for your cats. Even if they're chipped, it's not that level of technology. And so the level of confidence that these cat people have, I want like an eighth of that, for myself, that I'm going to get home. Because at some point I'm just like, you're so confident that your cat knows the way? Because that's what they say. How's he going to get out? Oh, he knows the way. I don't know the way. Am I supposed to be asking these cats for directions? I think so. Because otherwise I can't get home. But they can. But anyway, my cats are home. They're not going anywhere. And again, their litter is right here. Often the door is open, but my wife decided, I think it's a smart thing. She's like, nobody wants to see the open door. We have like no doors in my apartment except for these two. So it's like an escape room. But anyway, so that's with the cats. And it makes me upset because I really do love cats. And, it's like, that's like a very old school way, write these posters around town. But it makes me think, I get them also in emails. I get notifications about lost cats and emails. And I just want to say things about emails, okay? Now, in terms of divisions, right? Okay, so like Republican, Democrats, not going to get political at all. It's just as a point of reference. But it's just like, there are big divisions in the world, such as like Mets, Yankees, Jets, Giants, Republican, Democrat. And I don't really care for any of those. I'm terrible at sports. That's another thing that makes me insecure as a lesbian, because lesbians are supposed to be good at sports, and I am not good at sports. And I think, just as a side note, that I'm the worst kind of not good at sports because I look like I might be good at sports. So what happens is I will get drafted for teams for sports only to be kicked off of those teams for having no clue how to sports. Like, I was on my law firm's basketball team, okay? And first of all, I got the ball one time the entire season, which, like, I think we can agree that was an accident to begin with, that I even have this ball in my hands. And when I have it, I'm just, like, standing there petrified. I'm like, what do I do exactly with this ball? And then I'm like, oh, I know, I will pass it to the referee. So that's the kind of lesbian I am. I was kicked off of that team. And it was just like such a funny thing. Oh, where are the cats? They're around. They went out. I'm making fun of myself. No, I'm just kidding. But they are somewhere. Usually when I'm screaming my head off in front of Zoom, they're like, that's relaxing. I'm going to go to sleep. Any other time, they're awake and running around. But anyway, so I was kicked off of the law firm basketball team. But just a side note about lawyers, when I was kicked off of the team, first of all, the way that I was told that I was kicked off was like the most indirect way. They're like, well, there's this guy, Ron, and he's like, the firm wants to ensure the competitiveness of the league going forward, subject to, and I'm like, am I getting kicked off the team, Ron? And he's like, yes, but you have to. This is true. You must start another team because lawyers are the most afraid of being sued. And they thought that it would be Liz versus the law firm about the fact that I was kicked off of this team. And the lawsuit is still going. It's 10 years. So anyway, I think I'm going to win. But no, that's how I use my law degree. It's like people ask me, like, how do you use it? I'm like, I sue everyone. So anyway, what was I saying? So I get these cat things in emails. And here's the thing, is the division of the population, the things that people think are important, I think other things are important. Like, do you let your cat out or do you not? Do you yell at people in traffic or do you love waiting? And do you save your email or do you delete it? Now, I think, based on how hot I'm coming in on this topic, you probably think I delete the emails. Just saying, I don't like it when comedians say, I know what you're thinking, because it's like, do you know my PIN number? How do you know what I'm thinking? Like, honestly, if you know me, you probably know my PIN number. I once gave it to somebody I was on a first date with. That's like unprotected sex for lesbians, but that's another story. So anyway, but I think you may understand what I'm thinking. And so I really feel strongly about email savers versus email deleters. And I am not a deleter, despite how passionate I am, because usually it's the deleters who come at you, right? The deleters, get like a passing glance at your iPhone and they're like, I almost had a heart attack looking at your inbox and how many emails you have. I'm like, you don't have to read any of these emails. I don't know why you are upset about my inbox, right? I feel like you're looking for reasons, because it's never like, it's like a passing glance, or like I post something online and they're like, I caught wind of how many emails were in that inbox of yours and I'm nervous for you. I'm like, please, no need to be nervous for me. I saved them on purpose. I love all 127,544 emails in my inbox and I want them to go nowhere, right? Archive, schmarchive. I want all of them, okay? Because the thing is, I like them because the thing is, like, it's like the new year, right? People get rid of stuff. We want to balance checkbooks. We want to throw out sweaters, t-shirts, Marie Kondo, whatever. I get all that because you can't control F search your pants. You can't do it, but you can with your email. I save all my emails because one day somebody's going to need to know the Hebrew name of your high school friend's second daughter so we can engrave it on the silver bracelet that we're getting as a group gift for the bat mitzvah. And who has the 2008 announcement for the Simchat Bat? Me, Nechama Malka. I won that round, okay? And I'm like so much less religious than all these people, and I'm knowing the Hebrew name, and oh my God, it's actually spelled differently, right? They used a chaf instead of a chet, who knows why? But anyway, so we knew because of me, and I felt like a hero that day, and all my friends were like, you really should delete your email. I'm like, you're welcome, would also be fine. So anyway, But the other thing is voicemails, okay? Now, this one I wish I could keep, but I can't because this phone of mine, right, which as a device seems to have the capacity to house 9 feature films and a burst of 127 pictures of a subway seat that I didn't mean to take 5 years ago. That same device, if I have maximum, more than 2 minutes worth of voicemails total on the phone's like, I can't do it. I'm full. Why? It's the same device, and it's almost like I feel like the people who designed, the voicemail system had like an originalist interpretation of voicemail. It's like nobody needs more voicemails than what would have fit on answering machine tape from 1987. That's all it is. Nobody needs more than that. And you think I don't want your voicemail? If you took the time to leave me a voicemail, I have 1 moment of audio specifically from you to me. I want that. You might have made a private joke, and then I'm going to have to delete it because then my voicemail box is full. Like, here's something that happened to me. Went to Plymouth, Massachusetts, and my car didn't start, okay? Now, I don't mean to brag, but I happen to have an extremely old car, okay? It's like 100 years old. It has key marks all over it. It's not green, right? It looks like we would eat it at Shalashudas. But anyway, it's so old, and I absolutely love it. Which, by the way, can we just talk about cars for a second? I really do have an old car, and every day is a bracha. I am so grateful for it. I have a special bracha that my wife wrote me. She's very good at benedictions. That is just like me thanking my car for existing every day. It's really like 100 years old. And so, but I love it. And not just because, I don't want to pay for a car. I mean, sure. I don't want to pay for a new car, but really it's more than that. I love this car so much because the new cars, first of all, in a new car, a key to a car is like a theoretical construct. It doesn't need to be plugged in. I would pay extra for a key that you have to plug into a car, right? I would pay extra for a car that I know if it's on or it's off based on how loud it is. That is a function that I need in a car. Meanwhile, it's like, you barely need the key. It's like the car is like a 13-year-old boy in terms of the sensitivity of the car's body. I barely touch a new car, and all of a sudden it's like the air's on max. I have no idea how to use it, right? And then I'll be in traffic, and I'm trying to enjoy myself. Somebody's yelling at me and honking at me, and then I look like I'm saying something back to them, but in fact, I'm just annoyed at the car itself. And I don't want that, okay? I want my old car. So anyway, my old car did not start one day. Now it's fine. But I was in Plymouth, Massachusetts, okay? And the car doesn't start. And so I had to engage with a mechanic in Plymouth, Massachusetts about how my car didn't start. And in order to, engage with the mechanic, there were some voicemails traded. One in particular, where Barbara Geller from Plymouth, Massachusetts was telling me that my car didn't start and it needed a starter. And do you think that I don't miss that voicemail from, hi, it's Barbara Geller, your car won't start, it needs a starter, every single day of my life? Okay, I am bereft because I had to delete that voicemail. It was pure comedy. Absolutely funnier than anything that has ever come out of my mouth, and I had to delete it because my phone was too full. It's annoying. I don't like it. So anyway, I'm just thinking I have a lot of stuff, and I want to also get to any questions, and I also really like to get us out of here by 9 because I feel very strongly about that in terms of people's time. But okay, so we talked about, honestly, it's like we know there's going to be a test after this. The teacher doesn't leave you very soon. And so I just want to make sure we talked about emails, we talked about voicemails, we talked about cars with silent keys, cats who need to get out. We talked about Zoom. We love Zoom. This is really the review session of the set, COVID test. Oh, here's this, okay? We talked about cars that are like bar mitzvah boys. I think this is a little bit of a dirty joke, but in COVID times, coughing is the new masturbating. Can we just agree on that, right? If you want to cough these days, you better be sure you are alone inside. Nobody can hear you, and when you're done coughing, you better wash your hands. And then there's that guy who's like, it's fine, I'll stick to the bus. I'm that guy. So anyway, but yes, we talked about that. Oh, okay, great. So, and if you do have questions, I'm looking at the time, and I just want to see if so where are the cats? Well, we talked about that. They're out. But if you do have questions and you want me to answer those questions, feel free. Sam, if you have any lingering questions about the Minion bank account, I welcome those. Franny, you too. But anyway, so the other thing, I did mention that I'm married to a rabbi. That's true. We actually got married on Zoom, which is, I think I would be a good spokesperson for Zoom, because we did. We had our wedding on this website. And, it was like a very COVID-safe affair. It was very, very, private. We had like a guest, basically. It was like basically a work event in the backyard of my wife's temple. And I mean, my wife is a rabbi. And so basically she was like, you know what? I do this for a living. I'll marry us. I was like, you know what? I do this for a living. I'll give the best man's remarks. Like a rabbi and a stand-up comedian married to each other, pretty safe to assume at any moment one of us is in the middle of a speech. I said that to our couples therapist, and our couples therapist in the first meeting was like, I am getting that. So no, I feel like, here's the thing too about couples therapy. If you have sex the night before couples therapy, that's equivalent to cleaning the house before the housekeeper comes. So anyway, but we did that, and he was like, you seem so well adjusted. And it's like, we did it that way for you. So what's the best thing about being married to a rabbi? That's a great question. So first of all, I mean, I've always wanted to be in a polyamorous relationship with specifically a synagogue congregation. So thankfully my life has now manifested that reality, is number one. I love shul. I love it. I absolutely love it. Like, I have a lot of shul in my life. My mother is the president of her sisterhood, which, like, by the way, I have a podcast. I'm not trying to advertise. It's called Finding 40. If you want to find it, great. But I had my mother on my podcast, and before I had her on the podcast, I invited her with a text message. I said, Mommy, do you want to be on my podcast? She's like, nothing that would hurt my credibility with sisterhood. And I'm just like, what kind of sisterhood secrets do you have, and what kind of podcast do you think? Like, actually, my podcast is called Secrets from the Sisterhood. So anyway, but that's that. And so, but being married to a rabbi is great. I mean, okay, so I do have an amazing wife, and we're thinking of having a baby. And we actually, like, it's like, I'm very excited about it, but like not half as excited as my wife is, which, like, I don't mean it necessarily in terms of like gender roles or anything like that. But like my wife, it's like, if you have a podcast about like an egg that wants to become a baby or like anything IVF, my wife listens to that podcast. Like, recreational pregnancy content is made for my wife. And so I'm like very excited to have a baby, but I feel like I'm just rooting for, I don't know any of the words to say about it. But anyway, we, at first, before she was going to be the pregnant one, we decided that we made an appointment, like 2 appointments actually back to back, with a gynecologist, which I thought was very funny because it's like exactly what some straight guy would think that lesbians do together. Like, it's just like, what do you go like together to the gynecologist? It's like, actually, yes, 1 and then 1:30, just back-to-back appointments. It was basically foreplay. And so after the appointment, very romantic, hers and hers, we're asking each other, oh, how was your appointment? How was your appointment? So I asked my wife, I was like, how was your gynecologist appointment? And, she answered pretty typically, as you'd expect, with like things about her fertility. This is what it's going to be like. She happens to have a hospitable uterus, not bragging, just saying. But anyway, so that was the thing that she said in response to my question. She asks me, how was your gynecologist appointment? And I proceeded to tell her which of my jokes worked on which of the nurses. So I feel like if you're deciding between 2 lesbians who should be pregnant, it's not me, would be my answer. So, okay, if you could name a baby after 2 authors, who would they be? Okay, Mindy, That's what I would name my baby after you, because I have a policy of naming my baby after anyone who asks me, what would you name your baby? No, I'm just kidding. But that is a very lovely name, Mindy. Sounds like a president of a sisterhood kind of name. A Mindy, right? She'll plan your party. She'll call you on the snow list. That's a Mindy. So anyway, but in terms of authors, like I love an Audible that alleges to change my life, like an 8-week program for a self-help book. So here are the names of 2 authors that I recently read self-help audibles from, and I want to name my kid neither of these names, but they're the 2 names that pop up: Tosha and Julia, or Cameron, because it's Julia Cameron for The Artist's Way, which is a really great book. Just FYI. Okay, so what am I dressing up for Purim from my brother? Well, I feel like this is a leading question. Also, my brother, in his youth, dressed up as a lamp one year for Purim, which was the cutest costume, just a little child, just in a lamp, and I think it's so cute. But anyway, I think for Purim, I really just love dressing up in wigs, in the wedding dresses that my grandmother wore to my mom and dad's wedding, and also to my aunt's wedding, because they were wedding dresses. Like, I know this is more of a visual gag, but I can post pictures, and it's like if you survive the Holocaust, which again, I don't mean it as a brag, just happened, okay? Like, honestly, that's why when people are like, why did you go to law school? I'm like, I'm pretty sure my parents inherited trauma from their parents, to the tune of thinking the Nazis were going to come directly to our home if I didn't graduate from law school. So I did it. But anyway, it's like my grandparents survived the Holocaust, and then at my grandmother's 2 daughters' weddings, she wore these like ungepatchked white wedding dresses, and they're amazing. And my mother was actually going to sell them, and I was like, no. I mean, honestly, I wear them more than any article of clothing. Just like get on the Peloton in a wedding dress, whatever. I do love a Peloton. I love any kind of like system where it's like a website or app that gives me badges that don't mean anything. That is really exciting to me. So anyway, but I just want to see if we have, so regarding having a child, like, I mean, honestly, when I came out, you know, my mother wasn't like necessarily thrilled about that, but now she learned not just that we're having a baby, which I think is like an exciting prospect, but specifically that I guess the way that we're having a baby, we can return unused sperm, okay? And when she learned about that, it was more exciting even than the fact that we were having a baby. She's like, oh, I'll get on the phone with customer service. What do they give you back? And it's like, they happen to only give you back 50%. She's like, you should get 100%, at least in store credit. I mean, who wouldn't want a gift certificate to a sperm bank? And I was like, that's actually a very good idea. So that's what we're going to do. That is really roughly my time here. You guys have been just so fantastic. I'm Liz Glazer. I love you, Temple Bethel. Good night. Good Vach.
Thank you, Liz. I know you couldn't hear the laughter, but know that that was hysterical. Thank you. And thanks everyone for being here. I'll never think about Shal Shidduch the same way again. Perhaps we should call it Sudat Shlishit. Maybe that sounds less like snot on a plate.
Yes.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
What does the comment say?
Just thank you. Thank you. I really enjoyed.
Okay. You want to see if Dana?
Thank you, Liz.